Director, who's, I've heard, is losing her voice, so we'll all listen carefully.
So I will apologize in advance if my voice goes in or out, or if I have to excuse myself for a coughing spell. But I think this evening we just wanted to come back. We wanted to continue to look at the general fund and the alternative to balancing the fiscal year 16 budget. And I did include in the packet all three of the scenarios that we looked at last week as well. I just called it a working copy, and that column hopefully represents my understanding, my takeaways from last week, where we were working towards or where we're at right now. And then I thought for the most part, mostly due to the fact that my voice is going, that we could just kind of start at the top again and work our way down if there's been any further changes, any further decisions. And again, this would just be on the general fund. So under our scenarios for revenue, we have included at this point adjusting the tax rate a ½ cent to adjust to the constant yield notice, as well as an additional 1½ cent to adjust to what makes up the county differential, which was a grand total of 12½ cents. Last year, for the first time, we raised our taxes 11 cents, so the remaining is 1½. Public Works Supervisor, for the most part, my impression was after last meeting it would stay for right now.
I had a different impression. I thought we had decided that was one that would impact the new administration, and to put such a new position, just when a new administration was starting out, again, facing the current budget crisis, that I thought the consensus was to keep it out and let that be part of her considerations. Because she's got to balance personnel and budget decisions.
That was my understanding. Does everyone agree with that?
Yep.
That we thought we would leave that position
Yep.
out?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm removing it from the budget, so I'm unfunding it.
Right, so you're adding 70.
So I'm adding 70 to our savings. Okay. We had 130,000 for position lapse.
I'll move we reduce that one by 5,000.
Okay.
So we'd have 70 from above, and then taking 130 to 125,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we did a reduction in capital improvement projects for a grand total of $235,000.
You know, I've misplaced, if we had a memo that explained individually what those items were.
Engineering, you mean?
Yeah, I'd like.
A list of
yeah,
the projects.
I'd like to have a list of what those are, and I looked, and I thought I had something, but if I do, if we got something, I'm not sure where that is. But I'd like to, it's the same for the other items there, what precisely those items were.
So for the capital projects that we're reducing, as well as the changes in the economic redevelopment.
No, for the capital projects.
Okay.
The capital projects.
I
I
can
think
do
we
that.
all should, if we could all
Sure,
get
I'll
an
send that out to
email.
everybody.
Well, because you just.
You know what I mean, but specifically what items
I know
those
exactly what you
were.
mean, especially because we just put another $70,000.
Right, I mean, 'cause-
So if we wanted to keep it where we're at, we have $75,000 potentially in capital improvements.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we have to do
Well, or that I might not like something else
it. Understood.
different, but at least I want to see what they are.
Okay. An overall reduction in what we were going to contribute from the general fund into the economic redevelopment fund.
Well, I have to say, I still have to think about it and have it worked out some more. I tend to like the idea of devoting some of the general fund monies to one-time expenditures that these would be, and using a designated reserve in the general fund. So you know, at the moment, I'm tending to lean that way, which would, you know, reduce the general fund use for tax reduction, but would allow us to have a lot of flexibility in the economic redevelopment area. Only then I'm wondering why we shouldn't do 200,000 there. And that's just a question I'll throw out, if we have the designated reserve backing us up. We have a 200,000 transfer of new money. Why shouldn't we do 200,000 or work a way out so that we're indicating clearly that this is being funded from the reserve, not from general fund regular revenues, but from the reserve. So think about it. That's a way I'd like to.
And right now, this $100,000 would only be for those items in economic redevelopment that are not part of the first, third grant program. So like the PEP monthly rental items, there is a unit reduction incentive program, and there's some other miscellaneous things that we can take a look at line by line when we look at that,
Well,
that
again,
budget. But
my understanding is that if we did this designated reserve thing, that we could use that for projects coming down the road, and we don't know when the payouts are going to be, like the first third. But to the extent we can use that and specifically identify that as one-time expenditures and not other ongoing types of expenditures, I'm enthused about that idea, but I think we might be able to get some more money there. So I guess I'd like to know why we couldn't and take it instead out of there.
use reserves instead of doing that.
Yeah.
Under operating for the police division, we had previously identified a total savings of $95,000.
And there's one, I can't remember again what the computer equipment was.
It would either be like a one-time server or some data, mobile data terminals for some of the vehicles.
Okay.
That leaves in the operating fund another almost $100,000, even once we reduce that, for all of their technology and IT type of needs. But again, we're adding an additional $70,000 in savings, so if we're wanting to address areas where we're adding that back, that's fine. Right now, use of fund balance reserves identified 3 specific projects. One is the Market House, and that $30,000 was basically in the event that we need to do some renovations or some other things to help for our current, some different projects. And if those projects or the renovations would not occur, we would not need to expend the fund balance on that. But the other 2 projects there, City Hall improvements as well as the Potterfield pool improvements, both of those items are desperately needed, and one of which for City Hall was the painting of the clock tower, which previously this body recommended that we move forward with doing that project. The police and fire pension, we're going to leave our contribution in fiscal year 16 at the recommended level that CBIZ provided to us, which is 13.71% of their salaries and wages. And then last, I had a reduction in there, some savings on our annual debt service cost of about $50,000 that I was able to identify now that we have actually finalized our 2015 bond issue in April. Anything specifically to any of those areas? Any further discussion?
I was thinking that there was some agreement that we might not make that $125 contribution to the pension, but I could be wrong.
That's, well, I remember it that way too, that we had decided not to make it, but.
To hold off on that next year?
Till next year.
Was that,
I'm not interested in holding off.
you want to fully fund it?
That's correct.
Yeah, and I have to say, we have discussions that sometimes I'm not sure what's being said. So when one says, hold off, I don't know if that means we fully fund it this year, or we hold off to fully fund it until next year.
Well, we're doing it good to I'm saying we're in a fiscal crisis.
Oh,
and
no, I
maintain
understand.
it at
And
level
Martin-
funding. And I said that last year, that, you know, that's what you do. We're not cutting it like a lot of places. We're not eliminating it, we're not cutting it in half, we're just maintaining our current level of effort, and we're not increasing it. Which is lower than what they recommended to build up the reserves.
Right.
We can still pay the fund, we can still pay the retirees. We're nowhere close to doing anything like that. It's just, to me, you know, when you have these kinds of fiscal things in front of you, you have to do some things you don't like to do.
No, and I understand your position, but I'm not sure what the consensus is. That's what I'm saying.
On that particular item?
On this item, or is the consensus that we do fully fund it, or we don't for this year?
Or when, and I think I made a mistake by saying fully fund, but if we're making the contribution at the FY15 level, that generates $125,000 in savings. Is that the way that works?
Yeah, that's the
That's
way I
if we-
calculated it.
Right.
We're
So-
reducing the contribution by $125,000.
Correct.
We're not reducing our contribution, we're maintaining it at the current level.
So is
We're
the
reducing
general
the proposed
consensus
amount.
that that 125 stay here or disappear? That's what I'm asking.
My understanding of the consensus from last week was that it would stay as a savings.
Okay.
I know
thought
Councilmember
that is-
Alshire is against that,
And so was I.
and you were against
Right.
it. Okay, so Penny, you want to maintain, do you want to keep it, do you want to increase the contribution or maintain it at the FY15 level? No one's saying we're eliminating the contribution.
No, that's
We're
correct.
just going to
Not even
maintain
close.
the current level instead of increasing it as it was recommended.
What's increasing it as recommended? What's the amount?
125.
Do it again, okay.
So we're
Right.
still making a
13.6.
contribution of,
Are
We're
we
still
doing what
making
we're
our
supposed
full
to do, and we're not
recommended-
making any cuts? My point is it gonna be cut, is it not gonna be cut? Are we going to
Well,
do what we're
and-
supposed to
and-
do?
Yeah, and Penny, that
If we weren't in a budget crunch, okay, what would it have been?
250, is
It would
it
be 125.
25.
Okay,
120, hold on.
It'd be 125
Say-
more.
Right, so this
Additional.
is a real semantic issue we have. I think we need to get cleaned up. I think
Yeah,
the
please.
answer to the question is, what would be the contribution if it's funded as was recommended in monetary terms?
125 more.
More than what?
the original number.
More than
right.
the what we paid in FY15.
Right, I'm trying to find out what that number is. Because 125 more,
it puts it up to 250,000.
well, I don't know what it puts it up to.
If you had 125 here,
Well, hold on, Penny, that's what we're gonna get into.
So in the fiscal year 16 budget as proposed, it would go to $1,360,000.
Okay.
If we hold it flat to the 15 level of contribution, we will be holding it to $1,236,000.
So we'd still be contributing
Over $1 million.
whatever.
That's what's important to me. When I hear 125, I don't know what that means, and I don't think people know what it means. Martin, you know what it means.
I made this more, I
No,
can do all
but, so the answer is, do we fund it at 1 point?
2 something million.
1.36 or 1.24, was it? Yeah.
1.24 or 1.36.
Yeah, I think it's actually 124, but
And there always is a compromise to that. You could cut that 125 and put 75 in.
yeah, absolutely could.
Okay, we just identified 70,000 on one end, that would be a potential compromise, or,
But I think, you know, to me, you know, as we move towards a final resolution, I want to, I think, be comfortable with a package. With a package, and there'll be things in it I like and things I don't like. I want to be comfortable with the package, and that's why I'm,
So if, knowing that now, has anyone's position changed? Knowing what last year, this year's contribution was versus what it might be?
Would you repeat the numbers one more time?
Sure. 1.36 million or 1.24 million.
Small change at the state, Don.
No. If we fail to put the 125,000 in, I guess we have two options in the future. One is we can forget about it, and, or we can make arrangements to repay it when times get better.
Yes.
Okay, so if we forget about it, what's the consequences 3 years down the road?
That is very difficult to, that's very difficult because it will depend on how much money in the market, what the market does. So if the market does extremely well and bounces back over the next 3 years, and the value in those accounts grows, if the market offsets, the growth in the market offsets what the contribution dollar amount that we've reduced, there may be no impact.
Okay.
And again, so the actuary, when they look at that, they look at market value of everything that's in that retirement. And they also look at average age of all the participants currently in that program, as well as any withdrawals that we've had throughout the year, anybody that's left. And they do all kinds of fancy calculations, both forwards and backwards, present value and future value.
Ed, Lou, it's your position at this point to not take the additional 125 or...
Don, you know, if I had my druthers, I would fund this as recommended.
Of course.
But I'm looking at C, and I'm looking at B, and neither, both of them, as Marty has said, have things in there that I don't like, okay? I don't like in B using reserve fund balances. I don't like in C not fully funding the pension.
Right.
And I agree with Martin that when this budget gets done, there's gonna be at least one thing I don't like. So I'm going to vote for this on either end of it. I would vote for it if we used some fund balance reserves and did less than 125,000, but we need to get to our worst case scenario being a 2-cent tax increase. And I'm not, I think some of these capital improvements, Potterfield Pool, City Hall, I'd like to see what Market House is, I think they're important. I know just on City Hall and Potterfield Pool, they're $20,000 short of being fully funded if we use the 70 grand. So I'm going to be relatively easy because I'm going to be agreeable to either way we do it.
Okay.
If I had my druthers, I would probably use the reserve fund balance instead of the retirement issue. One of the things that scares me on the retirement issue, which always scares me because I think it's voodoo to try to figure out what the market's going to do over 30 years. I've always thought that guaranteed benefits is just voodoo stuff and praying, wishing and hoping and thinking and praying. Having said that, it really concerns me about the compounding effect. So I see when you don't put that 125,000 in, if we had a great year next year, yeah, well, in some respects that offsets a lot of our problems, but this whole recommendation, as I understand it on the pension, is assuming we're gonna have some damn good years because of the really bad ones we've had. And so that's 125,000 that we don't have in there that may be drawing anywhere from 6 to 8% interest. So I'm afraid that if we don't put the 125,000 in this year, if we have some really good years, you may have to put in 250,000 to make up for those compounding effects. That's my biggest concern with that end of it. On the other hand, I have to say, if there's ever a time where you're probably getting the least return on your buck in your general fund revenue source because of the interest rates, it's now. So the argument probably is that you're better off taking general fund money than not fully funding the pension. But I'll tell you this, if we use general fund money, I want it identified, and I don't want it identified as paying for the pension. That is no way to run that boat. That's gotta be anything that I think we use general fund revenue, the reserve fund revenue for, needs to be one-time
You meant
events,
reserve fund, yeah.
not something that's gonna be continual. So, I'm gonna be okay with any way we do it if we can achieve, I don't see how we can do it without doing either one in full or a combination of the two of them, and I would accede to whatever everybody wants to do here.
Kristen, you're still a no? You want to make that?
I'm a definite no.
And,
'Cause I don't think it's just a compounding effect of the impact of this specific number on the fund as it applies to the pension. Because the reality is, if you don't do it now, it's gonna catch up.
Pay now or pay later.
The figures that we were provided were sort of great case scenarios of a market doing significantly better than it's already significantly doing better than. And no one's convinced me that that's going to occur in that type of fashion. The bigger issue is, though, you can't just say we're gonna do 125 this year. Because if what we're looking at is structural stability, not just this year, but the year after that and the year after that, we're gonna have to talk about doing the 125 again next year.
We are.
And the year after
That's
that.
for- that's
And
for
for me, I don't,
And can I make this recommendation? It's been quite a while since we've had a 5-0 vote on the budget. So it would be nice to try to find if we could all get a compromise issue that we can live with. So that if there's one issue and one of our members would say, if that's gonna be done, I'm gonna vote against this budget. I would like to hopefully see that maybe we can get the compromises together so that we can be unified, that we're doing this the right way.
Well, number one, I have backed and followed fully funding these plans, which are very good plans, and which I'm not sure we can sustain
I
these
agree with
plans
that.
over the long run. We're running up against brick walls here. But the way I would see what I proposed, and again, I have backed them to the hilt before this. When you have a plan and somebody says, in order to retire, you need to build up, take a certain percent of your salary and put it in the savings account, mutual funds, or whatever they recommend, and you do that, but then you lose your job, you have a catastrophic illness, you have some other major financial impact, you most likely won't make those contributions, but at least you'll cut back on them. And that's where, I see us facing with this tax cycle, not catastrophic, but a major financial setback. So you nurse your way through. There would be a slower acclimation of building up the reserve rate, which once again, we've done a better job of than most of our fellow municipalities, as I understand it. But I just want to explain where I am. I'm not trying to be irresponsible. I
No.
think I'd never do that, but
I've-
I just think you got to weigh everything.
Listen, I understand, while we're on that, and while we're talking budget, and this is Bruce's last budget year, and for at least the last 3 to 5 years, our city administrator has told us, and if there's been anybody who's agreed with him, it's Martin, that our government as it's being run today is not sustainable. It's not sustainable if we continue on the same revenue and expense path that we're on. And it has been claimed over the years that the way to reduce our expenses is through consolidation of services. And there are a couple in here that know that every time we would go to State of the City and people would talk about consolidating services, they were real good when they wanted to talk about the tiny consolidations like permits or this and that. But and they always accused us of not being interested in consolidation of services. As soon as I get up and say, hell yeah, we need to consolidate services, but not those petty ones. We need to look at consolidation of our fire and our police services. soon as I say that, nobody's interested in talking consolidation of services at all. I mean, it's
You're right.
nobody.
You're right.
The public isn't interested, nobody's interested.
You're absolutely right.
So when we look at this, I repeat again, that we're gonna start with the new city administrator. We're gonna have a fresh look at the sustainability of the method that our government is being run. And we have to start looking at some fresh ideas. And what I'm hearing, among other things, is, and what I believe is that the current pension system we have and the current method of financing it probably is not sustainable. And there are only a number of ways to solve that problem. One is through collective bargaining, and one is through not having a pension system because you no longer are responsible for that service. But that's the change to make this government sustainable outside of really positive growth is going to take a number of years, and none of these things are gonna happen tomorrow, but it fits into the discussion that Martin is having right now with reference to the pension. And to that degree, I would say however this body goes, it'll work.
Okay, now, are you saying that you could live with C if we reduce, well, and the one thing that Michelle said a minute ago, and I think Marty said it, was we have to reduce the 130 to 125.
Yeah,
And you can live with
I
that?
can live with B or C.
Okay.
And I said that last week, I can live with either one of these or a combination.
I can live with C as well if we reduce that thing to 125. Marty, and you can too, right?
Reduce
I
which to
I didn't
125?
say.
So you're saying C,
I didn't say I picked a particular one, but I guess it's,
The 130 to 125.
The position lapse, okay.
Yeah, because of the 5,000, we'd have to pay someone else.
we added 70, we took 125 away, so we could
Yeah,
split the.
take
make
away
it
125
there.
instead of 130.
I just asked for more information on the others, but presuming that comes in acceptable.
And
On the CIP projects. But,
C has a little pain for everybody, but
in other words,
not as bad as a dentist.
what is it?
I'm waiting for the oral surgeon on Wednesday.
55, I just want to come out even with the revenues at least, so that we're, you see what I mean? Because we added 70 in cuts, but then we took away 125 in cuts.
Kristen, can
That's
you-
what I'm hearing at least.
Oh, wait.
Can you live with C?
Yeah, we added 70 for the position.
So we added 70, so
And I took
position
5, and
lapse.
I'm sorry, but then I took 5 away from this other
So
one.
that's 65, right?
So that's 65. And then we restored 125. So that's 35 plus 65, so
And
that's
it's
another
already-
60.
And it's already out of the working copy.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be at like 77.
Well, Michelle,
No, huh?
let's back up. On the working copy column, we've added 70,000.
Added
We've
70.
eliminated the public works supervisor position, so
Right.
we've eliminated 70,000 there. We lowered 130 to 125.
Right.
And then I think what we're
Can we
just,
stop there, because that was a question as to, was that position 150,000 or was it 130? That was last week.
No, we answered.
No, we didn't, because when you added more on, it went up in the ante with John's position.
I think, Michelle, you said the
Did I dream
130 was a
that?
good
She said
number
that
there.
130 is a
Yeah.
good number.
For that position with the current
Yeah.
benefits.
With the
Salaries
benefits.
and the
What we were
benefits.
That was salaries and benefits
And
in there,
benefits.
It's the
okay.
cost of the position.
All right.
Yes, yes, I did.
So I think the discussion is down at the bottom of that column, at least at
But
this
let me just
point.
make sure, because on C, as I'm looking at C, there's no 70
I
or
know.
125, right?
There's not.
So that's 195, am I right, or was that just a miscued at
That's right.
120.
Right, that's right.
That's right.
195.
So it's
If we're
195.
going from C,
Okay, we're going for C, so the 195, if you keep the 125 in, we're still 70,000,
We're doing
right?
good. You're
We're
doing
still
good.
70,000 to the
Right.
good.
Right.
Right, we're all there?
Yep.
So we're still, with that methodology and fully funding the police and retirement, we're still 70,000 ahead of the game. Everything else is funded.
Which is good, which gives Valerie a little bit going into next year.
Right, right.
Okay, can we then look at, and this would be under the fire department, and that would be the training captain. So is the training captain, is that, can we hold that? How Marty does it, okay? That you have it there, but still not fill it. So how do we do that?
right now.
There's a training captain's position, right, that has not been filled, all right, but it's still in the budget.
Yeah.
And it has not been filled for at least 3 years. So what I'm saying is, can we hold off on that but not eliminate it, like you do your, okay?
Does that still count as position lapse, I guess?
If we're talking about, right now in the budget, it's a funded vacant position.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's funded.
But it's funded. But
Okay.
I think what you're saying is,
That gives the chief some leeway to deal with that position or the money, right? The new chief coming in.
What I'm
Well-
saying is, if it hasn't been necessary in that time frame,
That's a good
can't
point,
we, okay? I mean,
I think she's saying
you know,
unfunded,
She's saying, keep the position.
but
lap-
unfunded,
Lapse the funds,
Yeah,
like we did for the
unfunded.
unfunded position, keep it an unfunded position.
And that position's been vacant for 3 years?
yeah.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good
why
point.
should we?
Hold on, let
No.
the fire chief.
Could be vacant for
Two.
another year.
Let's find out. Let's find out.
Okay.
The position's actually been vacant for around 2 years.
Two.
The former training captain got promoted to shift captain. The reason we didn't fill it was because it became an issue during contract negotiations. And we held off on filling it because of that. And since then, we have rewritten the job description to include some of the duties that Mike Weller used to do.
Okay.
And we have already started the promotional process to fill it now.
And
Well,
I-
it's just that I see that at one place, since we're going into and not disturbing anything, that would be another area.
And my feelings are that we've achieved right now with what we want to do, what we need to do. I would love to give the new chief some leeway, especially when I'd be interested in hearing. I know, to me, losing Mike Weller was a great loss.
And that's the fire safety educator, right?
Now,
Correct.
And Chief, let me ask you, I wasn't as enthralled by fire safety education as I was, and maybe you're telling me we still do this job, is what I saw from Mike Weller at fire scenes dealing with fire victims. Do we have anybody who does what he used to do?
We do not.
Would this position entail that type of work?
It would, yes.
And to me, that's important. If you've ever been to a fire scene and seen a family displaced, to see our firefighter there with the family, taking care of them and making sure they're taken care of is something that I think is much more important, quite candidly, than a fire education person goes around and teaching. But I would leave our budget the way it is and leave that to the discretion of our new chief is what I would do, just very similar to what we're doing with this other position in its own way. I'm assuming you don't want that position defunded, if you had your choice.
This other position, we are funded. We are defunding.
Yes.
We are, but we're also having somebody interim, we're looking for some type of reorganization there. And I mean, if that's what you're gonna direct the new fire chief to do, we could do that. You could defund it and say, figure it out.
I just think that we're in a fiscal crisis, that we're filling positions we haven't had for a while, and it's like we're loading up and we're loading Valerie up.
I think that, you know,
And-
the
and,
choices of her coming in, I
you
feel
know,
that
that's-
she's gonna be able to handle what's been thrown away. I don't
I
think
mean,
that that's.
I'd like at least to keep an open mind on it. I don't know
Also with that, I'd asked Michelle, thank you, Chief. I had
You're
asked
welcome.
Michelle about full-time, part-time status, and that's really a hard nut to crack. But we do have 49 part-time positions,
In the
Michelle?
fiscal year 16 budget, and
Right.
it's not seasonal, just
Right,
part-timers.
so, and with seasonal, I have not a clue. Looking at, and I really would like to see what those part-time positions are. We have one now that is in the budget, and that would be in Parks and Rec, and that's moving a part-time into a full-time, which is gonna hit $18,000 with the benefits and the increase in salary. And I don't understand that, you know?
I think that was to be paid for by increased revenue in that department, however.
But there is, Parks and Rec, it's very difficult to have increased revenue because almost everything that is done is not bringing revenue in.
Well, I think
That's
that-
my point.
But I think I mean, I don't want to speak for Rodney, but just from my own experience, they're creating innovative types of partnerships that are allowing them
But what
to
are we
create some revenue.
spending out to get to increase the money, but we're spending out? So you have to look at the expenditures as well.
Mm-hmm.
And where are we with it? That's the thing.
Right.
You know, look, Rodney, and you know I don't attack, but knowing that we went through 3 Parks and Rec personnel when I was in, all right? And now we're, you know, Amy honestly has more of people that she has working for her than any of the others, and was able to make it go. And a lot of what is being held at the fairgrounds, because that is mostly where all of the activity is, all right? A lot of those, they do themselves, you know? It's not that we're getting
yeah.
revenue from this.
Right. Well, I think there are things that we do get revenue from. I guess I like to address this kind of at a higher level first. We have an issue in our community that we have the 3rd highest obesity rate in the nation in our planning organization. So to attack that, we all passed our HEAL resolution that we would be a healthier community, active lifestyle community. In your priority list, you put that we want to attack this problem. So what Amy has been charged to do, and what she is doing, I think, a really good job of, is at places like the pool, the golf course, the train, we have more and more activities all the time. But on top of that, though, we're doing things that are new to the city. The yoga programs, the adult sports programs, the 100-miler, the fitness programs, all those kind of things are things that are attacking this problem. And to run those programs, she goes out and works with people to do those, but we do need some administrative help with things like background checks, orienting the instructors, coordinating the logistics of the sites, registering all the people that are involved. So that's what that position is we're asking for.
But why can't Amy do that?
She does some of that, but it's
I mean,
as this grows,
I-
it's more than one person can do.
But now we are in dire straits, and I can only see that most of the people, I would say, that work here in City Hall, knowing they will assume to actually do more, okay? You do more. And when you're talking the money part, and this is what I have to look at, okay? I've got to look at positions. And the more that I'm seeing, and you really don't have that avenue with part-time as to, okay, so what part-time positions are we really doing? And not only your department, there's a lot. The chief's got 19 in his, okay? And it's like, okay, when we're talking $15,000, $20,000, and this is impacting the budget, that's, you know, that's a biggie.
Well, our proposal would be to eliminate the current part-time position. That pays for half of the full-time position. We're going to decrease in our parks budget, the seasonal positions in there. We're going to decrease that by $7,500. That leaves us about $10,000 short.
But where are you going to decrease seasonal? What part?
just looking at the track record of our budget over the last few years,
Yeah.
our part-time, it seems like there's enough money there that we don't use every year. Every year, we have park attendants and things like that that quit, like in August and September, and we can't refill those positions for a month or two at the end of the fall. So we always have
But
surplus of
seasonal
funds
help,
there.
if anything, seasonal help that should be brought on with as many parks as what we have.
No, I agree with
should
you.
see that going the other way than doing it this way. And that's my personal opinion, okay?
I'm not talking about maintenance, I'm talking about like park attendance, those kind of
Yeah,
things.
well, you
Yeah.
know, we need to get who we need to get on board to be able to do that, and we should have to pay more money to have qualified ones that's really going to do something. Because
Right.
otherwise, we have to depend on the police to do that. I'm sorry, but I just don't see that.
I think the
and that's
difference
the thing.
in what Rodney's proposing with this position is that it's basically being funded by
Or either eliminating
revenues coming in through that. It's not a
or
general
additional revenue from these new
funded
programs
position.
that, I think we've done more programs in the last 2 years we've done in the history of the city, probably.
Well, and we probably have, but again, the programs, I'd like to see exactly what the programs are that's coming in that we're being paid for
Sure.
and what's going out,
And I
what
can
we're
put that
paying going
together.
out.
Sure.
All right? That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you guys figure it out? Did you guys just solve the whole budget problem over there? What did you come to the conclusion of?
What? I guess we've got the -70, the -125.
Wait,
Lou asked about the 60,000, or maybe Marty asked about the 60,000, reducing engineering and parks and rec CIP, what those specific
I just
projects
asked what
were.
they were.
One of them was lighting in City Park, the other one was deferring vehicle.
yes, and I have my folder in the back.
Deferring what?
A vehicle for
Oh,
parks.
vehicle.
And so there was consensus to take that one away, is that right?
Oh, so we're in the working.
Which which column are we in? We've been in C,
Three.
we've been in the working.
Yeah, C3.
Let's stick with C.
That's
Okay,
what I'm
so
trying to
C.
figure out. Everybody's good with that?
So we're
So
adding.
that's 235. Yes.
So we added the 70 on the first line, we added $125,000 savings on the next. Then instead of leaving 60,000 there as savings, we're taking that to 0.
She's in the working copy.
Now I'm actually in C.
Oh, you're in C.
Yeah, I came back, he just said that's where we were.
Okay, we're all going from different.
I know.
It starts,
That's what I'm trying to figure out. The three that are there, 61, 25, and 50, everybody's good with eliminating those as proposed, right?
which means leaving those numbers
Okay.
in that column.
Correct.
As savings.
235,000.
The only number that I knew we were gonna take out of that column was the 125.
For the retirement contribution.
We're adding in,
Well, but in C down below, we didn't agree to take the reserves, we didn't agree to go to
well,
reserves.
we didn't need to because we had 60 plus 125. wasn't it?
You guys are losing me, you're jumping up and down this
That's what I
list,
said, we're all
top to
different.
bottom, and I just want to go down the list
Sure.
and know exactly which one's in order.
So we've been through the public works, we're good with that. Position lapsing, increased 125, everyone's good with that. The reduced general fund CIP, the 60, the 125, the 50, that's 235. Everyone's okay with that. The reduce the economic redevelopment contribution from the general fund, $100,000, everybody's good with that. Marty had some questions about whether or not we do that from the reserve or bump it up to 200,000. But it seems like we're good with 100,000 to start. We are.
Okay?
Reduced police operating, the 50, the 25, and the 20, seemed like everybody was okay with that.
Right.
No objections. We didn't talk about the reduced fire operating, that's not in.
Hold on. Because I know we had a conversation last week about the reduction in the overtime, and I believe that the thing that Chief gave us was something a bit different.
The chief said nothing in fire and 50,000 in
I mean, in police.
police. 50,000
Okay. In overtime, not in capital,
overtime.
right? Okay.
And he said he thought that he could make that work.
Okay.
50, 25.
Same with fuel and computer equipment. So everybody's good with that, 95. We didn't talk about, it's not in column C, the reduction in operating for fire. Everyone's
I
good
think
with
we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
It's,
Okay, so that one gets added back in, right?
it stays as a
A cost.
slash.
stays as a cost.
Yeah.
Okay. stays
Still
as a
an
cost.
expense.
I got you. It's a plus.
And then the use of fund balance reserves for these specific CIP projects.
We've got 120,000.
So we're gonna pick the 120 versus the 375 or 250, right?
Right.
Correct. We're identifying those specific projects to pay for out of the fund
There,
balance.
minus a 120.
And
What
then
about,
the police and fire retirement contribution, it sounds like,
0.
it's a
Yeah,
plus
every-
125.
right, so we're Xing that out of column C.
Right.
So it'd be
So we
0.
have a gain of 65.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Right.
Yes, that's,
We have a net gain of 65,
that's what.
and without taking into account the position that Penny brought up, which I think some of us would be interested in learning more about.
Before we get there, what about the last one? Reduction in debt service, 15 and 9B, 50,000. Everybody's good with that, right?
I think that's a,
That was
yeah,
a
that's a new
technical-
one. Right.
Adjustment by Michelle.
Okay.
Which means that based on those adjustments, the 725 now becomes 790. Michelle, is that right?
Yeah.
And the bottom net adjust
To 72.
to the good of 77,000.
Because the 725 now becomes,
797.
790.
Excuse me.
If you want to track those numbers, and the 7,000 becomes 72,000.
so to be clear, so far, we have cut $790,000 from the budget, right?
Under what we
Okay.
just discussed, correct.
All right. Did we decide on the adjustment to the tax rate?
Which is
2
right now
cents.
at 2 cents on that
Yes.
column.
That's in that
Well,
column. Well,
again,
that's column C. It's-
I'm working towards it, but I haven't decided yet, I guess,
No, talk to me. What do you mean you're working towards it?
I'm
Where are we
working
going?
towards where I can go with this,
Okay.
this package,
Okay,
okay?
yeah.
I'm
What I want to know, Marty, is there going to be a tax increase or not with what we have now just done?
what we've just
You
done.
mean next
Oh, yeah,
year?
it's what we've just done, they're including
2 cents.
2 cents. You-
We're
you
still at
could,
2 cents,
yeah,
okay?
Still 2 cents.
And if what I came up with, eliminating that 76,000 whatever with the other full-time person going
Then you would not need
into,
it.
so are you doing, how much is that taking out of that equation?
Well,
Let's take one at a time. The parks position, I would just tell you, I'm not in favor of not doing that. I'm fine with.
I don't
going
care, I'm
back to
asking the
full.
question. Person, it doesn't matter, because I'm only
I
going
know,
to
but I'm
vote on
trying
that
to
anyway.
figure out how
I
many
just want to
people
know
are
how
in
much of
favor
a
or
half
against
cent.
each
I
item.
know
are you
that.
talking about the first position of the park?
I'm talking both of those.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
just haven't-
does that take you to eliminating a half of a cent?
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I don't, what was the part-time number? Do we even
About
have a number
18.
for that?
18.
About 18,
18, well,
right,
In recreation.
yeah.
Yes.
My understanding though is it's not really this year that we're, and I think this is where Councilmember Brubaker's coming from. It's how can this 2 cents get us through next fiscal year?
That's what I'm trying to figure out
So
right
we
now.
don't
And
have to
that's
have a
why
tax
I wanna
increase next
Look at
year.
what we've discussed and try to see how best to set us up for next year. No, Penny, I think your stuff is very valuable.
I just feel that
and-
knowing that Marty is always the one that really does not want to increase taxes, and look, I increased taxes last year. Well, you know what? This time I'm the hardliner and I'm saying no. You know, if I see that there is cost savings that could happen, then why not go for it? You know?
483,000.
So you move, if you wanted to go that way, you would move that reserve fund over.
I mean, if you want to do that, you go back, if you want to not have a tax increase, which is where I was the first one to be, by the way.
I know you were. That's what I said.
Okay.
You're the one who's always
And
there.
Have I said I've said I want to consider everything together, including next year.
I just said.
But I would like to work to something we can all agree on.
Well, I'll tell you right
Agree on that.
now, I'm not going to work at it, okay? I'm where I'm at.
Well,
I've suggested, it doesn't fly, then, you know, you all have to do what you have to
And
do.
I'm also interested in cementing this idea of the economic development fund thing into our budget somehow, so that we have, I'm totally clear on what we're provided for. And before we wrap this up, because that has, considering how we use the surplus and so forth. So Those were good suggestions.
No,
I would
but it
incorporate
doesn't.
them into my thinking.
And look, it doesn't matter, you know,
Yeah,
just.
and it does matter, certainly it matters. But to me, the impact for next year too has some consideration, because if we do, if we did 2 cents this year, then see, last year I felt like we did 11 cents, that should have been enough, but that's not where we came out. We didn't come close, so, and I laid a paper out with all kinds of different possibilities. I can bring it back if you want. Some of which we've done, some of which we haven't, but I can't see doing it this year and then having to do it next year. I think we'd almost have to say, look, next year, you know, barring an emergency, that's it, if we raise them.
I agree with that, Marty. We're not going to raise taxes next year.
Well, I don't know, I guess I said that
I wouldn't
last
make
year,
that
and I
promise.
got no, see,
Right,
and
we start laying
that's a
people off
reasonable
next
place to be,
year. Yeah,
but you know, I'm talking about where I am and where I think we ought to be.
Right now, based on all of those changes, if we amortize the things that are debt service related, and you remove the items that are one-time expense, you're at 937 next year. 937,000 is what you will carry into next year based on all of the changes you made. So out of the $1.4 million, about 930,000 of that will apply in a carryover fashion. In other words, if you took the CIPs and it's 220,000, you're really looking at about 22,000 in amortized debt service. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the reduction.
Well, in the projections right now, it was about 1.2 million deficit for 17. So if we reduce some of that revenue though, because I had in a 5-cent tax rate increase in 16, that was going to continue for 17.
That's right. And what I'm doing is applying the reductions within the changes that we've made
And carrying them
to the ones that are able to be carried forward, not the one-time things,
Okay.
and not the total amounts that are simply a CIP where they're at one-time expense. You know, 100,000 this year is going to be 10,000 next year. I've already accounted for that. It's $937,000 you would carry into next year that would apply to next year, or about $483,000 on the revenue side, and $454,000 of that $790,000 on the expense side is a carryover savings. So about $930,000, and that's what, $250,000 on the penny, right?
241 now.
So you basically, for next year, you've accounted for 4 cents worth of the savings roughly.
Sounds like we have a little more work to do on this. We do have our hearing tonight. We have a work session next week where we have a special session to introduce the budget ordinance, which we can certainly amend, but we have time in the work session to continue the discussion. I guess I'm wondering what, if any, other information does staff need to bring?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
The first is, I'll bring it up again this year, and that's the $97,000 on this federal America Buys bonds. I think that we didn't account for that last year because we said the feds might cut it.
And they did.
We didn't account for it again this year, so there's still 97,000.
That's the majority of my 50. And they did
Okay.
cut it. It wasn't quite 10%, but
Okay, so you've already accounted for that one. The other is, we budgeted about 15 grand on stadium, we spent about 50. Next year, I think we're budgeting 18, and
operating.
I'm just trying to make sure that we're staying within the parameters of what we agreed to.
And you're talking about the operating side there?
Yeah, there was like $49,000 that we spent this year, and we budgeted 15.
But was part of that because they're actually paying rent now? I mean, was the other part of that made up by the rent that they're paying?
I'd have to actually go back and look.
Additional expenses where they are paying rent, yes.
The other item that I have a question on is the HR contracted services. Looks like it's jumping from 50 to 95. And then out of the CIP projects for this year, there are 4 that I have concern about, which total $99,000 in debt service in following years. The first is the alley program. That's about $39,000. Not to say that we shouldn't do anything, but it seems like if we're in such a crisis, we're taking on a huge bond amount for that. The second is the fairgrounds grandstand building. While I'd love to finish the grandstand underneath too, that adds $9,000. And the big one for me is the Melt Park. We're bonding that, and we don't even have a Melt building down yet, and that's $46,000 we're gonna add to an amortization schedule. And then the last one, I can't even read my writing, but it was $5,000. And it's it's a city park dredging. I'm not opposed to the 60 grand we plan to spend, but I don't think we need to spend 60,000 to design something that I'm not certain we have the ability. I mean, I brought the issue of, can it be dredged and what's the effect? And we're already at design money this year and construction money next year. And just me personally, I'm just not there. So that's about $90,000. Of which half is that Melt Park.
Okay. So of all those items, we'll look at the stadium. The HR contracted services decreased in the fiscal year 16 budget because in fiscal year 15 we included one-time city administrator recruitment efforts. So that was reduced going forwards and should, at this point, to the best of our knowledge, not reoccur. And then the CIPs, I got the 4, the alleys, fairground stands, Melt Park, city park dredging. And those 4 items were all included as a 26 bond issue in the book.
2016, yeah.
Do you want to eliminate them, Chris? Is that what you're saying?
My preference is to eliminate, at minimum, the Melt Park one and cut the alley in half. If you go to the out years, the next 5 years, it goes from like 400 and then it drops down to like 50 grand. And I'm good with doing something, but we're biting off
Can we,
a large piece.
would you mind having some comments from Rodney?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, the alley number is an arbitrary number. We did a condition survey of all the alleys, and the conclusion of that was they're worse than we even thought they were. So we thought we'd plug a bigger number in there this year to start addressing some of these and kind of get a jump start on it, but that could be adjusted however you feel is best in this overall picture.
The savings won't accrue in next year's budget, they would accrue the year after. I mean, I'm not saying don't make the adjustments, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to bring up. I'm just saying the savings would accrue the year after.
For 17.
And probably about 7.5–8% of the capital amount. If it's unfunded.
What was the, I'm trying to find the Melt Park.
So the alleyway was projects.
Section 9, page 15 is a good place to look.
Is
Section 9, page 15, kind of the summary of all the projects by funding source.
I was just,
Yeah, fine.
We basically plugged a project in there to take the Melt property and
we did,
Page 114.
yes,
Section 1.
number 856, C0.
what we plugged in there was a small parking lot, access to the creek.
Okay, but that wouldn't have any 15 general fund effect.
No, this is bond issue and as he points out, he's looking at our numbers on annual debt service requirements. So if we don't do that in 2016, we wouldn't have to in fiscal year 17 pay out
Right.
$46,000. And
Yeah, no, those are things that help towards 17.
Like the creek access, we could get a grant probably from, like we did at Kiwanis Park, and we could work towards something like that, if you don't want to fund balance.
Was that in the Melt fund?
So you'll take a look at those things maybe and bring something back to us? or-
we can actually make sure we attach separate copies and send it back for next week's packet, or even just send it as an email out tomorrow so that you don't have to go the whole way through all of this section. You can see all 4 of those
And
specific
then how it
projects.
would impact This coming fiscal year versus 2017?
Yeah, could you do so people get it, the approximate, both the fiscal impact, it's debt service, so.
It's actually listed on every single one of those.
Right, but the amount of bonds doesn't help people, it's how much.
No, the annual debt service is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already listed,
on
yeah,
there.
that's how I came up with the number.
Okay.
But yes, I can create a cheat sheet, spreadsheet, and put that all back in one place if you would like.
I think that might be helpful.
The last item I'll note is we have 16 fees listed in section 8 or whatever it is, that are pre-2000. Not to say that they shouldn't be updated, but some, like getting the clerk's city code book, nobody's buying that anymore. There are some of those we can just eliminate. Everybody gets it online. And nobody's gonna pay $125 for a copy of the city code, as exciting as it may be. And the other is there are 28 fees that are older than 10 years in being updated. 10 of that 28 are fees, when you look at comparable communities, are lower than those comparable communities. So I'm not saying it has to be done as part of this budget deliberation. All I'm saying is there's, 40 of those items that I think staff need to consider over the course of the next fiscal year.
Yeah, I think those would be good agenda items to
Yeah.
look at next year. Or even mid-year,
Fee adjustments?
even mid-year, if, Kristen's got a list, let's look at it.
Kristen, will you send me a summary of that? Those items, the ones that you're talking about, or point me in the right direction so that we can put that on the agenda. Is there any other part of the budget that folks wanted to go over here today? We are going to have this again on our work session agenda next week.
Fire chief won't be here next week, so is there any other information you need in reference to the training position in the fire department?
I'd be
Yes,
interested
no?
in the information. I mean, it seems like it's the last big possible cut item we could talk about, so I'd be interested in the information.
On which, I'm sorry?
The fire.
Yeah.
So, you have that on this list, you're saying?
I think it's unresolved at this point. I was just saying the fire chief won't be here next week to answer questions.
So if anyone has questions about the
anything
position.
that would help, he's here.
But it sounds like there's an interest in perhaps adding that to the list
I'd
of
like to see a position.
expenses that we could
description,
eliminate.
I'd just like to see the position description.
The position description as it's been amended
The
recently.
latest, the
latest.
latest position description is
And next time we come in, Michelle, can you do a revised chart?
Yeah, maybe eliminate some of these other scenarios here.
Showing where we are when we leave this
We don't have
meeting.
any more room on this sheet.
One column.
No more scenarios. And we don't, I understand some people are not withholding, reserving their judgment on the 2 cents, so we don't have any clear direction on that at this point. But again, we'll have more room or more time for discussion, so.
On that, can Michelle just take a minute to explain what's in the notice in the tax rate hearing? Because it talks about 5 cents based on the proposed budget, not knowing for sure where mayor and council would want to go from there.
Correct, and so we have the public hearing tonight. When we had to advertise it, it was back in April, and that was before we were even beginning our conversation. So that's the way the notice was posted in the paper. This evening, I can, mention that instead of the 5 cent that was previously posted in the paper, we are in the midst of considering a 2 cent increase and go from there and give them just a couple
Considering the
basic numbers.
maximum of the 2 cent increase instead of considering.
So
I
the
think
public
that'd be accurate.
understands that you're not considering 5 cents
Right.
any longer.
Sure.
But I also
Right.
think we need to make sure that everybody knows we haven't decided we're gonna have a 2 cent tax increase either. But it would not exceed 2 cents under our worst case scenario, I think we would agree on that.
That's a good way to put it.
I think it's a good way to put it up too. Or not.
All right,
And
anything
then,
else?
Next week, we'll introduce 2 ordinances, one on the tax rate, one on the budget. You could amend them
Right.
between next Tuesday and the 26th. So So we just need to consider that, Michelle, the possibility that there'll be amendments for the final meeting in May.
Okay. We will have city administrator comments at this point.
I have just one, which is to acknowledge this is John Lestition's last week with the city. 14 years working for Hagerstown. I think he filled 2 difficult positions for us. I think he found ways to work through the challenges of those positions, to lead programs, projects, services that will serve Hagerstown well into the future. And I just wanted to extend my appreciation to John for the things he accomplished over those 14 years. And that's it for me.
Thanks. We'll start with Mr. Metzner.
I would concur with what Bruce just said. I usually, so you know, don't have many comments about our media, and it doesn't look like they're here, so that's fine. But I would really like to invite their editorial board to sit down for our budget discussions, because they obviously have figured out how we can build a minor league stadium, fund the downtown hub, and not increase our taxes. And I think that's wonderful, and I wish they would clue us in on how you do that. And just as importantly, if they can clue us in on that, I'm sure they can explain to us what we didn't do last time when we tried to get the Hagerstown Suns here. What was it exactly that the Herald Mail thinks we did not do? I find it fascinating to believe, with the fact that the Suns have made it clear they don't want to play in Hagerstown, some of these comments, and on a serious side. And I was going to contact him directly, but Mayor, I think if there's any single individual in this community, and I have reached out to the Suns, I'll say that, but if there's anybody in this community that would be in the key position to be the leadership focal point of trying to retain the Suns and in a position to utilize county government, city government, state government, it is clearly, and I mean this in all sincerity, one of the greatest cheerleaders appropriately that we have, and that's the head of the CVB. I mean, Dan needs to take the lead in this instead of sending us emails and saying you guys need to do something. Dan now is in a position to do something. As leader of the CVB, he is in a position to reach out to Bruce Quinn. He's in a position to reach out to the county commissioners and to our state delegation. It is clear that this city alone, just like Winchester, just like Fredericksburg, and just like Spotsylvania and every single municipality on the East Coast, does not have the ability to finance a minor league, minor single A ball club without either other government assistance, raises in hotel motel taxes, or private financing. And to continue to look to the city, whether it's the head of the CVB or the Herald Mail, to think that we are the entity, been there, done that. And we can do everything but find about $40 million, so.
Well, to Dan's credit, because I did sit next to him or near him at lunch today at the Historic Preservation Awards, he is working on that.
And
it might not be
meant
a big
everything in sincerity.
public
None
effort.
of this was meant as
And I don't
sarcasm.
think his email, I know we've had some emails back and forth, and I don't think he's doing that in an antagonistic way.
I didn't think so, no, and
And
I
I
was
think
going to
he's
contact him
thinking
directly.
strategically in terms of how we can make that kind of broader partnership happen, because it is quite clear the city cannot be in the driver's seat alone. And I have an idea for how a stadium can get built. The Herald Mail and the county could choose to work with Bruce Quinn to build a stadium on the property they already own. And then if they came to the city with the proposal to do that, I'm sure we could probably find a majority to move forward with what's in our capital improvement plan, which is to build a $13 million parking garage to support that major development in downtown, which would free up the municipal stadium to build an indoor sports facility. and we can have both kinds of tourism, economic drivers.
We could even have a water feature going right through the stadium.
Right. So, there are ways, but I do agree that the county, and it is a county, a state, and a city business retention / attraction. But saying just go talk to Bruce Quinn is like saying go slam your head in that doorway. And I have no plans or intentions of doing that unless there is a clear, broad partnership in the community that's ready to have those kinds of negotiations.
And you haven't even had the unique privilege of having already done it.
No, I have.
Like some
I mean,
of us.
I've sat around the table with them. We've gone through this. But I think, it is going to take a more concerted effort from people at all levels of government, and there needs to be serious consideration of that hotel motel tax and what it was originally intended for, which was not only promotion of economic or tourism and economic development, but for projects, for bricks and mortar projects that help create economic development
And
opportunities
we're
and
looking
tourism.
forward to the dedication on Saturday from Memorial Park.
Yep.
And that's my comments.
I'll talk more about that too. Mr. Brubaker.
No comments tonight, except thanks, John, for his service. I had lunch with John last week, and we had a good, productive conversation, and wish him luck on his new ventures.
Mr. Alshire.
Well, I think amidst all the rhetoric, continual rhetoric about the stadium, I'm glad to see that this budget includes a number of projects that we will actually be doing, as past budgets have. I wanted to thank Marty because while I sort of dive into the minutia, I think that the list that Marty produced was a good list for us to sort of go from and give staff a good idea of sort of the bigger items that we need to tackle and leave sort of some of those priorities on the table for us to focus on. Speaking of those big projects, and I said this at the State of the City, I think I said it the year before that, and I've said it in this venue a number of different times, a number of different ways. I attended the, I guess it was the executive board meeting of the Walsh County Homeless Coalition. And of course, there was some discussion about the Dagmar and the billing, and it's clear that while any number of those individuals and their represented agencies, have sincere interest in helping folks, they're limited in their resources, and impacting those resources is not an interest in limitation on the extension or the degree to which that help is extended. And I don't think, and I think it was a good point made in that meeting, that there isn't a single entity, big or small, that has an ability to absorb any medium crisis of housing, of operations that are run. It is also very clear that state and federal funding that is handed down through the various efforts that they oversee prefer the placement of individuals back into private housing or semi-private or private nonprofit housing as a preferred method. And we happen to be a location for that. It has continued to thrive in this community. And I don't care how many trails we build. I don't care how big a stadium we construct. If we don't address the issue of subsidized sheltering housing within this community, we will not change the tide on this budget. Our assessments will not change. Folks will vacate the community in our stable neighborhoods. We will not see a return of business to our downtown the way that we envision and we direct our budget and expenses and personnel to make happen. We have to address this issue. We have to sit down with these entities. We have to figure out exactly how those operations are occurring. And until we do, I don't think that we have any clear indication of the degree to which it has gotten. And that, for me, I think, for the coming budget year, for me, has to be a priority of this body. We have to bring in the appropriate parties to gain some understanding, because the things that you become aware of in a community, I don't think that hearing them or talking about them here gives you as clear a picture as you need to make those necessary changes until you actually see them in action and witness their impact on your personnel and their ability to provide services.
Thanks. Mr. Munson?
First, I'd like to thank John Lestitian for his service. I've had an opportunity on a whole bunch of occasions to work with John over the last 2.5 years, and he has performed his duties admirably from my point of view and helped lots and lots of people that I've contacted him about. And I wish him well in his new endeavors in Washington, D.C. On a somewhat lighter note of some of the conversation, the mayor and I went to the Commissioner's annual John Fry Historic Preservation Award ceremony this afternoon. It was a great event. It was very uplifting. Some of the most dedicated people in Washington County, including a few from Hagerstown, devoted to historic preservation and history, were there, and I don't know, we had fun.
It's a good time. Ms. Nye?
Back to what Kirsten was saying about homes, basically homes that are being turned into those that are keeping people. I can tell you that back when I was first in office, I had asked about why is it that we have homes that come into the neighborhood and we're not privy to know that they in fact are group homes. I was told don't go there. So therefore, it's almost that you have to be out, you have to see the neighborhood, and you have to find out from the neighborhood, okay, is there group homes that are here? Is there a type of home that's there? And in learning that, I then find out that with addiction problems and after getting out of jail, that we have 4 of those places that are also here. And I'm not talking the Wells House, I'm not talking the W House. And this is why I have stressed it for so long, and Kristen is seeing it more and more, and it needs to be addressed. It really is killing the community. Everybody is making money off of this, and we continue to lose at the end of losing our people who are Main Street people. And it's very upsetting. When I was on the street the other day and was going through, I said, it actually is heartbreaking to me to see this town the way that it is now from the way it was when I was growing up, and not seeing the faces that you would normally see here. And I continue to see new faces come in, and it is not the faces that I want to see. And the colors are being now again touted at you, and they're on the street, and predominantly red is what you're seeing. This is not good case scenario, and with the incidents that we have had in Baltimore, we're going to have more that's going to be coming our way just to try to test the waters. But it's going to be very rough for the police department, and it's going to be basically all hands on. But it's a very, very scary situation, and Kristen's right. If we don't get a handle on it, I've seen so many people with backpacks. I'm about to tell them, just take a number and get in line and, okay, now where did you come from? Because I don't know that it's even being monitored as much as what all of the do-gooders are trying to do. I don't see that we're going to see an end to this. It just keeps increasing. Also, there was another theft that was on Summit Avenue. This time it was an 80-pound gargoyle that was in the back. 80 pounds now, okay? Now we've had the urns, and I don't remember now how many urns we've had that have been taken, but they continue. They tried to evidently move at the Women's Club, and they then were told, so they actually have those locked down. These people know what they're doing. And again, it's a matter of catching, and I don't know that that's going to happen. The graffiti still continues on, and that is not a good case scenario either. Did go to court last Friday, and that had to do with the appeal from Court Park. And I think that it's important if any council members can, and even though it may be a big drudgery for any of us, I think it's important that judges see that council members are in fact interested. We had a private citizen that was there. We had one from the Planning Commission that was there. I was there, and it wasn't leaving Steve Bachmiller then hang out on his own limb, because he was there, of course, to be able to testify if he had to. But I think it's very important that our judges see that we are part of this. And I don't know what the verdict is going to be. I hope that it's a positive for the city, because if it's not, we're going to have a major problem again. And I miss seeing you there.
I mean, I told you I had another commitment.
No, I didn't.
You can argue.
You didn't know.
You can argue.
You didn't know, but
But I appreciate
at that
your
time.
support,
But you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I just feel that it is important.
Well, yeah.
So I was there. I just said, miss seeing you there. Okay,
Okay, then.
that's it.
Well, I want to add my accolades for John Lestitian. He really has had a very storied career here with the city of Hagerstown. He has had a lot of influence on many positive changes, many at his direction, and I think he's done a lot of good work for the community, and I too wish him well in his new endeavors. And I think Don, or somebody mentioned it, the Memorial Park this week, Lou mentioned it, the dedication of Memorial Park. I've got a preliminary program here. It's going to be awesome. There's some information about the initial inductees. Rose Hill Cemetery is covering the costs of producing all these programs, which was a very nice donation on their part. And most of the folks who are being inducted in the first round into the Circle of Achievement will have some form of descendant present. I think only 2 of the 12 will not, and I know Councilmember Metzner is going to be there on behalf of Thomas Kennedy Memorial. So I think even there's a 93-year-old relative, descendant of Jonathan Hager, that will even be here. So I'm sorry?
Jacob Wheaton.
And Jacob Wheaton. But there's also one for Jonathan Hager in their 90s that will be here. So it's going to be a really fantastic event. Hopefully the rain will stay away until maybe the afternoon, but we do have some contingencies for rain. I also wanted to mention that the Day of Hope is also...
Real quick, on Memorial Park, just a heads up, if you're attending, the ceremony starts at 10:30. We're encouraging people to be there by 10:15 because they're going to close South Potomac Street at 10:15. And it's easier access for the parking if you can get there before 10:15.
Where is parking going to be?
Rodney,
Behind the park, so if you turn in off Potomac Street where the community garden is,
Okay.
and go behind, there's a parking back there for about 8 cars.
If that's,
Where the public works employees
if
park.
that's filled up, can we go to the school?
Yes.
And thank you for that reminder. No, that's okay. I was trying to remember that, but I'm glad you mentioned the street closure, because that can always catch people off guard. And the Day of Hope for the Medal of Honor Neighborhoods First Group at Wheaton Park will be this Saturday. I believe it starts sometime in late morning. Let me just double check my calendar here. Yes, so that should be noon time. I'll be giving some welcoming remarks, but they always have a great turnout and great volunteer organizations. So hope to see everybody there. We will be adjourned until 7 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We're here going to call this meeting to order. And tonight we have, well, I guess we needed a motion to go into special session first.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzger, to go into special session for public hearings on the tax rate and budget. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Any opposed, say no. I would like to note Councilmember Alshire is absent tonight as he has to attend his own budget and tax rate hearing over in Myersville, so he regrets he could not be here, but he certainly can watch us on YouTube. First up is our hearing on the FY 2015-16 tax rate. And I think staff have
Yes.
something they'd like to start out with.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council and citizens. This evening, we're here to discuss a real property tax rate increase for tax year beginning July 1, 2015. The estimated real property assessable base is estimated to decrease by 0.5% from $2.469 billion down to $2.457 billion. In order to offset the effect of the decrease in assessments, the State Department of Assessment and Tax calculates what is called constant yield tax rate. This simply means that in order to receive the exact same dollar amount in real property revenue, the city would need to increase our tax rate from 89.8 cents per $100 of assessed value to 90.22 cents per assessed value. At the time that we did the budget, the fiscal year 16 proposed budget, and at the time that we actually published our hearing notice, the budget included a proposed 5-cent tax rate increase. However, at this time, the maximum amount that the mayor and council is currently considering is a 2-cent tax rate increase. This 2-cent tax rate increase would take the rate from 89.8 cents per $100 of assessed value to 91.80 cents per assessed value. This represents an additional $388,350 over the constant yield tax noticed amount. And at this time, I'll turn it over for any public comments.
Clerk is advising us of who has signed up to speak. We have one citizen who would like to speak on the tax rate, that is Miss Diane Eves. So I'll invite her to the podium.
Mayor, before that,
Sure.
could we just add one other thing to this? And Michelle, would you just, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at the general fund, section 3, page 6. If we were to raise it 1.5 cents, and nobody has agreed that we're going to do that, but if I am correct, that would be 1 cent less than the tax rate, combined tax rate that existed in 2005 and 2006, 10 years ago. So let there be no misunderstanding, because we had the largest tax decrease in the city's history the last couple of years, a couple of years ago. If we were to raise it 1.5, we would be having the same combined tax rate that we did a decade ago, just so we all understand that. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Eves.
Is the economy better than it was a decade ago? I live in the North End, in a neighborhood of small houses. There are 5 empty houses on my block. Some of these have been empty for 3 years, maybe more. And the rest of the neighborhood, as I walk the dog, looks to be pretty much the same. I'm considering this kind of a wellness check on the community. When I suggest to people I know who are looking for a house that there are empty houses in my neighborhood, I feel I need to inform them that there are city taxes as well as county taxes, and of course they quickly back away from any consideration. The outcome is sometimes the empty houses become rentals, and unfortunately a few of them become pop-up crack houses. So it's my understanding that vacant properties in a neighborhood decrease a property assessment, and I'm sure the unwanted, undesirable occupants of other houses would do the same. So I don't consider at least my neighborhood to be a healthy neighborhood that could sustain tax increases, no matter how small. I would also note that homeowners have maintenance costs to keep the property value up. I have a dying tree in front of my house. It's probably going to need to be taken down in a year or so. I can't afford to pay for the trees that are being dug up and replaced downtown. The city's marked my sidewalk for repair. As a taxpayer, I can't afford a walking trail downtown. I have other progressing maintenance issues that I need to have money for. And I know a 1.5% increase doesn't sound like a lot, but last year I got a small raise, and the city took my raise for property taxes. So I'm essentially where I was last year. Parts of the city look very good, but I wonder how deep the appeal is beyond appearances. Having an appealing tax rate would be something to consider. I would like the city to be economically healthy and not just look economically healthy. I don't feel like the citizens can sustain another property tax increase until we have a tangible, real economic recovery that we can see in the neighborhood and feel in our pocketbook. And I gave Martin an article from World Magazine about, they feature articles from time to time on small cities, and there's one on Greenwood, Mississippi that I found very interesting. There was a citizen, native-born citizen, who created an industry there, and from his industry that began to prosper, he created auxiliary businesses to go along with that, and it lifted the economy. And I think that's the way we should increase the taxes, by lifting the economy with some significant stimulus, rather than trying to stimulate something by raising taxes on the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on the tax rate who has not signed up to do so?
I want to thank her for the article, and I'll make sure it's distributed to all the elected officials.
Thank you.
Staff.
Okay. At this time, we will close the hearing for the tax rate, but we will certainly leave the record open for, well, until we make a decision on the ordinance, the final ordinance for the tax rate. Okay, that closes our hearing for the tax rate, and now we will have a hearing for the FY 2015-16 budget.
Thank you. In the proposal, the fiscal year 16 proposed budget, the total expenditures, both operating and capital, across all of the City of Hagerstown funds is a total of $126,939,673. And again, that includes all funds, general fund, all the utility funds, parking, and capital improvements. In comparison, in the fiscal year 15 approved budget, that total across all funds was $121,485,189. In total, this is a 4.5% increase. At this time, there's ongoing conversations that include some expenditure reductions within the general fund. So the amount that was originally in the proposed budget of $126,939,673 will probably within the next 2 weeks be reduced. Of all the city's funds, the largest operating fund is the general fund, and this fund is projected to be $42,516,390, which is an approximate 6% increase over fiscal year 15 budget of $40,117,914. Details on all the expenditures and the revenue for each of the fund, along with program information, is in the individual budgets and appear throughout the budget document in separate sections. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one person who signed up to speak on the budget tonight, and that is Ms. Nancy Smith. Nancy?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I wanted to first introduce you to our new director for the Hagerstown, our new Hagerstown location, Amy Rupp, and I was going to have her say just a few words.
With the Maryland Food Bank, I should mention.
With the Maryland Food Bank.
Hello, everyone. As Nancy said, my name is Amy Rupp. I'm the new managing director for the Maryland Food Bank Western Branch, which is located in Hagerstown. I have been there for just over a month now. I have probably 10 years of experience in working for other nonprofit organizations in human services, so I know all too well the need that we are currently serving out of the Hagerstown branch here. In the couple of weeks that I've been here, I've really enjoyed getting to know our partners, and I'm enjoying this experience right now, getting to know the city of Hagerstown as one of our partners as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak a few minutes about the agency contribution program. The Maryland Food Bank, Hagerstown, has applied for a grant for $10,000. Now, in Washington County alone, there's roughly 147,000 people, 118. 12% are food insecure. 61% get help from the government. True. 39% don't. We are focused on three things. The 39% that get no help are seniors and the kids, childhood hunger. Since coming into the Hagerstown area and folding in food resources, we have tripled our staff. We have focused entirely on the 39%. We have also purchased contract growing with local farmers. During our rehab of our office, we used a local contractor, a local furniture dealer, and every dime that we get from this area stays in the area. We've seen a significant increase, like everyone else, with the need in Hagerstown. When we first started our FY13, we distributed 922,000 pounds. 2014, 1.4. We will close out, we are trending to close out at 2 million pounds. 2 million pounds of food going into Hagerstown. We will continue to do the school pantries. We will continue to do the Micah backpacks. We will continue to do the contract growing, which we are budgeting for contract growing, which goes into the local economy, about $40,000 this year. So we are continuing to make all the efforts we can in Hagerstown. Trust me, I've had people say, why has hunger grown so much? You know, people get help. True, they do. But the 39% of the people that we're looking at, and the seniors that are on fixed income, that aren't making it, their prescriptions are going up every year. And these are the people that have worked and lived here. They have been residents here. They pay taxes here. And then they find themselves in a situation. I've had many a senior at the HUD senior housing say, we don't know what we would have done without the Maryland Food Bank. So I'm asking, I come with updates, I come with our outcomes. They've always been good every year. And I'm asking the city of Hagerstown to be a partner with the Maryland Food Bank. And we will continue to fight this together. But your social services cannot, they probably can't take any more of a caseload than they have. And I feel that we've been a partner in this. And so I'm asking Hagerstown to be a partner with us this year again. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Nancy. Nice to meet you, Amy.
I knew Don Munson would have a question.
Let me just
Yes, sir.
ask you this. How do the people that you get as clients come to you? How do they know?
do that?
How do they know about you?
How do they know about us? Well, the seniors from the HUD.
No, wait a minute. What I'm really asking you is, do you go out and look for people who are hungry?
No.
Okay,
They come to us.
that's what my real question.
They come to us.
Okay.
Because they have nowhere else to go, Don. They go to their churches, friends or family. That only will last so long because, let's face it, they're all trying to survive too. They come to us. And these are the people that maybe are working two or three jobs. They may be part-time, they may not have benefits, and they may be at $10, $11 an hour, but they're not making it. The seniors, we get calls all the time from the seniors. We get calls from the schools. Can you increase your backpack for these kids to take home over the weekend? I personally like to see the school pantry. I don't people are gonna say, well, why are you saying that, Nancy? The MICA backpack program is a great program, don't get me wrong. But, I'd like to see more school pantries in the area that will promote the parents to come in, volunteer, get a couple bags of food, helping while being helped. I don't like the fact that a child is the food source, the one child over the weekend. So, and that's something that we're tackling. But, John, it's just amazing because as far as I'm concerned, from what we've seen, we're still in a recession. It has not changed. The salaries are flat. It just has not gotten better. My hope for Hagerstown, I'm talking out there, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years, is to have a community kitchen built in Hagerstown that we have down in central Baltimore. And we're going to put one in Salisbury. And that is where it actually really changes lives. It takes the individual, it trains them. Food service is a high-growing industry. And I've seen this time and time again where it totally changes lives. And this is the 12-week program that we have. We call it, it's our community kitchen called Food Works. And some of the people that come to Food Works, they've maybe needed a third and fourth chance. But they graduate from that program, and that is a sense of accomplishment. We get them jobs before they leave. And I have literally seen it change lives. We partner up with employers, and people poo-pooed this program years ago, but this program works, and I've seen it with my own eyes. We're going to build it, like I said, in Salisbury, and my hope is in 3 to 4 years that we have a Food Works built right here in Hagerstown, because this is the program, and these are the kind of partnerships. People want to get back to work. The students that I've seen from this program, they want a skill. Not everybody's going to go to college, and not everybody's going to go to an apprentice school of such. But this seems to fill a niche within the communities, and it has worked out. It's remarkable. And it doesn't cost a student anything, but it is a very strenuous 12-week program that you better be on time. You don't, 3 strikes, you're out. There's no crying and no coming back and begging. It is a life lesson for 12 weeks, and people learn it, and it is amazing when you see our graduation ceremony, how these people are elated. Maybe it's the first thing they've ever accomplished. But, it goes deep. It's work. People want to work. They want to have purpose. That's why when I was telling you about the 39%, these are folks that they make too much money. They make over $23,000 a year, and it's a family of 4. And they're working 2 and 3 jobs. And I see it every day, all day long. I've seen it for 10 years. I've never seen it so bad since 2007. And it hasn't changed much. Hunger's an issue. You have a well-fed community. Hunger and housing goes hand in hand. A well-fed community is a thriving community. So let's just stay the course, try to stay the course. We've got some plans for Hagerstown, and one of this is the training kitchen. I think that this is just something that could really turn lives around, and help with the root cause. The root cause. Everybody asks me about the root cause. You just throw food out to people. Well, we do. You can have all the great highways and the great hospitals, But you know what? If you can't feed your children, none of that means anything. None of it. And that's what we're focusing in on. And our seniors. They're not, they have no means of making a living and living above the poverty rate. And these are the people, we are their lifeline. We are their lifeline at the senior center. Total lifeline. And I've heard it so many times, thank you. I don't know what I do. I can't ask my kids because they're struggling. Or, I can't get this, I have to cut back on this because of the medication. So I'm asking for Hagerstown to partner up with us again, yes. And you'll probably see me next year and maybe I'll say, guess what? We put a dent in this. Or guess what, we're breaking ground. I hope you guys all attend for our Food Works Kitchen. But we're here, and we're here to be part of the community, but to help the community. Thank you.
Thanks.
I did want to mention that we received some other correspondence related to the budget and the city's plans. One is a letter from Gerald and Leva Cohen that I've distributed to all the council members here this evening, and also a letter from the Washington County Free Library on some of their accomplishments over the last 24 months. Is there anyone who did not sign up who wishes to speak on the budget, proposed budget? Okay. Once again, we'll leave the record open. Certainly, anyone can reach out individually to members of the mayor and council, and my standard practice is if I'm the only one copied, I'll make sure everyone else gets it too. So please feel free to get in touch. Did members of the council have any statements or comments or anything they want to share? Okay. Hearing none, we shall be adjourned. Thank you.